before the Holocaust, before World War I, before Europe turned its violence inward. Germany carried out what historians now recognize as the first genocide of the 20th century, not in Europe, but in Africa. This happened in what is now Namibia. For decades, this history was barely mentioned. No major memorials, little global attention, and almost no consequences. This is the story of how colonial rule turned into genocide, and how land theft made its effects last far beyond the killings. In the late 1800s, European powers were racing to claim African territory. Germany, newly unified and eager to compete, joined late. In 1884, Germany declared control over a vast region in southern Africa. They named it German Southwest Africa, present-day Namibia. At first, German officials described their presence as protection, but protection quickly became control. German settlers arrived. Land was surveyed, fenced, and claimed. Treaties were signed under pressure, often misunderstood or ignored. For the indigenous peoples, especially the Herero and Nama, land was not just property. It was livelihood, identity, survival, and it was being taken. German settlers took the most fertile land. Cattle, central to Herero life and economy, were confiscated or destroyed. Communities were pushed into marginal areas. Legal systems favored Europeans. Indigenous people had almost no political rights. Violence by settlers often went unpunished. Resistance grew. In 1904, after years of dispossession and abuse, the Herero rose up against German rule. Later, the Nama followed. Germany responded not with reform, but with military annihilation. The German military commander, General Lothar von Trotha, issued an extermination order. It declared that the Herero people were no longer German subjects. Men, women, and children were to be driven from the land or killed. German forces pushed survivors into the Omahik Desert. Water sources were guarded or destroyed. People were deliberately cut off from survival. This was not chaos, it was policy. Those who survived were captured and placed in concentration camps, years before such camps became infamous in Europe. Prisoners were forced into labor. Many died from exhaustion, disease, and abuse. By 1908, up to 80% of the Herero population was dead. Tens of thousands of Nama were killed. Entire communities were shattered. Historians today recognize this as genocide. When the violence slowed, the damage did not end. Land seized during the genocide was not returned. German settlers retained control over farms, cattle, and infrastructure. Survivors were forced into labor systems that benefited the colonial economy. They had no political power, no compensation, no justice. Even after Germany lost the colony following World War I, the land ownership structure remained deeply unequal. Colonial rule changed hands, but land stayed where it was taken. This is how genocide extends beyond death, through economic control and inherited inequality. For decades, this genocide received little international attention. In Germany, it was largely absent from public memory. In Namibia, survivors lived with the consequences but little recognition. Only in recent years did Germany officially acknowledge the events as genocide. Discussions of apologies and reparations followed, slowly, cautiously, and controversially. For many Namibians, recognition came too late, and without meaningful land restitution. Memory was delayed, justice remained limited. Modern Namibia still faces deep inequality, especially around land ownership. A small minority controls much of the productive land. Many indigenous communities remain economically marginalized. These conditions did not appear by accident. They are rooted in colonial decisions made over a century ago. Understanding this history challenges a common myth, that colonialism ended cleanly, and the past stayed in the past. It didn't. Colonial violence reshaped societies in ways that last generations. The genocide in Namibia was not an isolated tragedy. It was part of a larger colonial system, one that valued land over lives. Remembering this history is not about guilt, it is about truth. Because genocide doesn't end when the killing stops. It continues through land, memory, and inequality. And histories that are forgotten are often repeated, in different forms, in different places. Namibia's story deserves to be known.